It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And thank you for tuning in and listening to the 32081 Scoreboard Show. As always, I'm the Todd, and joining me on the other line, the man, the myth, the legend, the hardest working sports reporter in Northeast Florida, especially in the 32081 area, Mr. Anthony Richards. Anthony, how you doing after a Monday Night Football game again?
Yeah, again, I'm doing great, Todd. Yeah, these Monday night games are becoming a tradition quickly.
I don't know if I like it, though. I already said it last week.
Yeah.
Even though I couldn't make it over to the tank, I really wanted to watch this game. I was watching on TV because I couldn't make it over, do some other commitments. But, wow, let's just go ahead and start out with the Sharks. I got to be honest with you, I did not see this coming. And it wasn't the Sharks that caught me off guard. It was actually the Middleburg Broncos. They totally abandoned the rush, especially in the first quarter. I counted something in the first half. Again, this is just me doing it as I'm watching it and being distracted. But I counted that in the first half, they connected on 5 of 17 passes, and they only rushed 6 times. And one of those 6 times was, I believe, in the first drive, they got to what, Anthony? Probably about the 30, 25, somewhere around there.
So, yeah.
And then the huge 4th down stop. But were you surprised by Middleburg just saying, hey, we're not going to deal with the front four, which we'll talk about in a second because they did deal with them. But they tried to test this younger secondary, and led by Finn Day, they did pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, too, that they came out wanting to just kind of throw the ball around the yard. You know, it's you think of Middleburg, you think of, some maybe, nice, bigger offensive line, want to pound and, go physical right at you. And it was just the opposite. They were coming out wanting to, it seemed like they really respected the Ponte Vedra front seven, but to the point of, almost, abandoning it completely and just tossing the ball around, which, is, can work. But for them, then, the Ponte Vedra secondary was pretty much up to task and really made it tough, especially it also allowed the front seven to pin their ears back. And then the Middleburg pass protection looked a little suspect. I know their quarterback, Carson Stewart, was getting hit often throughout the game.
But see, here's the thing that surprised me about that, Anthony, with Stewart, and you just let me into that with him getting hit. With Stewart, he struck me more as a pocket passer than what we're seeing with Drew Price and Nate Harry, where we have, the kind of dual threat kind of quarterback. But they let him sit back in the pocket, and I'm sitting there going, if you're going against that front seven, like with Riker Kemp, Robbie Greco, Babin, and the names go on, you'd want to get the ball out of his hands quicker, I think. But they left him back there, and I'm going to tell you, that kid got punished. I mean, Riker seemed like he was in the backfield all night long. So I really didn't understand their game plan because I was expecting quick passes. But then if you look at it, their quick passes were ineffective when they did try them. And really their yardage came off these huge pass plays, that they had, an 88-yarder, I think, one time in one quarter and a 50. And then one of them, he got nailed at the 19 and somehow completed this Hail Mary of a pass. So the short passes weren't working for when they tried them, but I just feel they kind of left them out there like a sitting duck. And if I'm the Sharks, it's a feeding frenzy for me on the quarterback.
Yeah, they could definitely call it a lot of plays that took a while to develop, looking down the field. And they were able to complete some chunk plays. If you take enough shots, you're going to hit some, some bullseyes. But just really, I mean, he's a big guy too, so he looks like he could take some hits. But almost from the second snap of the game on, it seemed like every 2 or 3 snaps he was getting just midsection hits, over and over again. And by the end of the game, you could see it. They did finally run the ball to kind of just run the clock out and get out of there. I think he was probably the happiest on the field when he heard those running plays come in.
Yeah, he was way happy about that, right? And then you look at the front seven again, and then what they had the Broncos pinned back inside their 5, I think, and Robbie Greco came up with a huge block punt and recovered it himself for a touchdown. Then the very following series, they had another block punt by Babin that was recovered at the 1 that led to a Drew Price 1-yard touchdown run. The defense was really giving them havoc. Now, some people might look at the score and they might say, no, Todd, what are you talking about? The score was 52-21. They still scored 7. I think what you got to think about, though, is that some of that yardage they made were off 3 to 5 big plays. They weren't controlling the game at all against the Sharks.
Yeah, no, it was, just taking shots and kind of hoping. And then, they landed some of those and showed some of the athletes that they do have when, they were able to get in space. But it was kind of, other than, take away those 3 big plays for touchdowns and, it would have been a shutout. So it's, and I know you can't, but that's just kind of how the game went. Unless it was a big play, Middleburg wasn't really wasn't really doing a lot. And that's not really the best way to operate an offense. You want to have that consistency of being able to just pick up 5 yards, 7 yards here and there and move down the field. And then off of that, suck the defense in and hit a big play, and not just take deep shots and hope that you eventually hit one, and that's kind of just how the game plan ended up going.
I felt like that's what they were doing, though, weren't it? I mean, I felt like a lot of his passes were, I hope they catch this one. I mean, he's got an arm. Don't get me wrong. The kid chunked the ball quite a bit, but it just seemed like it was like, oh, just get it out of my hand.
Yeah, and it's that was just kind of the game plan, going in, and like I said, you can, middle the Ponte Vedra defense, especially up front, it's kind of hard to scheme and hide from. You can scheme and say, okay, we won't run at you, but then if you decide to go pass heavy, then it allows their DNs to really come after you. So really, either way, you kind of pick your poison against the defense.
Now, I'll tell you, the only thing dirtier probably than a quarterback's uniform after getting nailed so much to the ground was probably the officials' flags. I've never, you know what? I was going to say I've never seen so many flags thrown, but then I remembered that this was the same crew from the Nice St. Augustine game, and I lost track after flags. I think I had 10 flags in the first half, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was just left and right. But let me ask you about the secondary. So first of all, Finn Day, I mispronounced his name the week before. I can't believe I did that. But you talked about seeing the secondary tested a few weeks ago at a game. And I felt like I said earlier, that Middleburg was trying to look at this younger secondary. And Finn had some fantastic pass breakups, and they stayed stride for stride a lot of times with these wide receivers, except for on the big plays. I came back out of this game, Anthony, I'm not sure about you, saying, this younger secondary, they're good now, but they're going to be pretty darn good in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. What's kind of maybe a question mark, or it's something that you wanted to see develop going into the year. The secondary is really developing with every game that flow, comes through, and you can see it, in just their play. And they had 2 picks in this game. And you can just see that they're not, guys aren't breaking away. They're sticking with guys. So they're showing their speed and their technique to be able to just run with guys. And I mean, that's like kind of the last, the front 7, we always talk about them. That secondary continues to develop the way they are. I mean, by the time the playoffs roll around, they're going to be it's going to be a real complete defense, that formidable group, because that was the kind of the last kind of link in the chain that you wanted to see develop, and it's really starting to take off, and their confidence is really rising. You can tell. Yeah,
and I think probably the only question mark at the second half, or as the first half was coming to an end for the second half, was, are we going to hit that magic number 35 to have a running clock on a school night? I think that's what it was, because everyone was wondering, are you going to hit that 35? And then the Broncos just kept, every time we thought they got close, they kept just chewing away at it, didn't they? They just kept saying, no, we're going to stay in this. No, we're going to stay in this. Brian Case, let's talk about him. He had another great night. You look at Drew's passing yardage, and you're like, okay, he did good. We know that Drew can do it. He also has some nice rushes, and that's where he's dangerous also. But when you have Brian rushing for 147, and you got Hilly that came in and tacked on an additional 72, that pretty much says to me you're controlling the game at the line of scrimmage, and you don't really – and, I mean, Price didn't really have to go to the pass as much. I mean, they tried it, but, I mean, they were just dominating – like I said, on all 3. They were dominating on the offensive line. Brian, I think, has some great blocking up front. Hilly had it when he came in. Drew when he was running. Defense, special teams. It just was a perfect all-around night, I think, for the Sharks on all 3 aspects of the game.
Oh, yeah, it really was. It was a complete game, the definition of it. And, the offensive front really seemed to, control things and, really out physical Middleburg throughout the game, and allowed some great running room for guys. No matter who ran, it seemed like they were getting nice chunk plays, and it was nice to see a bunch of guys get in there and a bunch of guys have success running the ball. And yeah, Brian just continues to do his thing. You can see why, schools like Wake Forest and all are interested in him and looking at him, because he has a unique combination of both physicality. He can run you over, but he can also, or after he stiff arms you, he can also just use that to turn on the boost and run down the sideline for a 70-yard run like he did in the game. So it's really, the combinations like that are why Division I colleges look at you.
yeah. And 2 other players I want to ask you about. The first one that I thought just had a heck of a game on the defensive line. He was wreaking havoc, coming in, going out, getting breathers. Was J.P. Dolan. He just seemed to wreak havoc up there, and he gave it. Like I said, they all played well. Kemp, Babin, Greco, but I just really felt like J.P. Dolan. He just seemed to be in there every single play.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, like they would call, he's got that motor, which a lot of the PV guys do. but he's one that, you feel like you got him blocked, but he just keeps turning, keeps going. Maybe he'll go, you see he's trying to go around you. Maybe he'll kind of go inside and just he'll keep doing, whatever he can to get around you. And if the quarterback holds onto the ball, he's gonna hit there.
You can
eventually.
tell he works on the sled, can't you? I mean, because you're right. That's what he does. He hits that offensive lineman. He keeps driving it like a sled.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you keep going backwards, and eventually, that guy your own lineman runs into the quarterback, and there you go. Now you've got pressure, and now the pocket collapses, and good things happen.
The other unsung hero that I kind of want to talk about here, and I think this is where the 32081 really is blessed in both football teams, is the kicker, Noah Ash. What a leg on that kid. I mean, I personally think they need to, get a collection to put up a net behind, like where the parking lot is on the other side of the concession stand, because it looks like he clears it into the parking lot. I mean, he has got a leg, and he seems like Mr. Automatic too for the Sharks. I mean, what a weapon is he?
No, I know. I think we've talked about in the past, like to have a kicker, at the high school level that you can just trust so much to even, hit a 40-yarder. I mean, it's just it is a weapon, because it can change the field. It makes you feel like, okay, we don't necessarily have to go for this 4th and 3, and let's just get points. And at the end, more points wins out. So and his kickoffs are getting to the point where, guys, they got the returners back there. Just once he kicks it, they just start walking to the sideline. They don't even watch it because they just expect it to go into the end zone. So
yeah, it's crazy. And to your point about Mr. Like just being able to trust a kicker. When you watch the body language of the team of the field goal unit or extra point unit, it just seems like it's just another trot in the field for them. I mean, it just is like, we're going to go out there. They know Noah's going to put it through the uprights. I just like you said, I think it's at this high school level to have a kicker like that it's golden. I mean, you never know. You see so many games lost by 2 points or 1 point, and all of a sudden you got someone to go out there and kick a 47-yarder or whatever for 3. It just changes the game for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is an offense in a defense's best friend, because you just keep adding those points, and like especially when you get in the playoffs, you're playing close games because the teams left in the playoffs are the best teams in the state. You're going to play close games down the stretch, and 3 points can mean the world. And whether you win or whether the game goes to overtime or just ended in regulation.
So let's switch over to Nice real quick before we do the picks for next week and what we think about the upcoming games. I'm sorry, this week. So Nice was supposed to play Bartram in a district game on Monday night. I don't know who, what, when, why, or how, but all of a sudden it came in very late. I know I talked to you about it, that game was going to be moved, I believe now, to November 7th, and it was going to be moved from Monday. In my personal opinion, the way that kind of looks out, it looks like that gives a little bit of an advantage to Bartram, in my opinion, because I think Nice kind of had a nice setup here. Even if they played on Monday, they were going to Atlantic Coast, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they're struggling a little bit. There's no doubt about that. So who's 3-4? So I thought that if you're going to play on a short week, they had the right schedule. But how do you see, or do you see this even being an issue, because Nice is clicking on all cylinders, moving this Bartram district game to November 7th, but then you have to turn right around and go right into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I found it definitely interesting because they did have it scheduled, and even earlier in the day they were saying that it was going to happen, and then at noon the announcement was made by the FHSAA, and Nice and Bartram were able to figure it out real quick, and then let people know that, hey, we moved the game. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that the coaches talked about, and they thought it wouldn't hurt them that bad, or else I feel like they would not have been for it. And yeah, either way, I feel like this Nice team is just different and special this year. So things like this maybe would not phase them like it would a typical team. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because you'd think having a bye before the playoffs is a crucial thing, especially if you're playing someone who does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, hey, for us to have a district game before the playoffs, it sounds really cool. It's going to be great to cover. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. But I don't know. I mean, I'm saying, I guess the coaching staffs know their teams, and maybe Nice coming off the bye, they were just like, let's just lengthen this bye, and I thought it was kind of. I like the FHSAA's decision. I think.
I think their decision was great, especially for what happened in Tampa and Central Florida. Totally agree with it.
Yeah, for the central part of the state, especially. I feel like I wish they maybe would have come out with it over the weekend. Just the timing of it is the only thing I question, because noon it did kind of put teams in a tough spot that had rescheduled games for Monday. But the decision itself, though, yeah, it's a good decision for sure. And Nice was quick to jump on it. So
yeah, it just seems weird to me because, like you said, it's like it's almost like what you've got Bartram, you're going to go in, you got to play Tukoi. It's looking like Nice is going to be favored in that game, obviously the way they're playing, obviously, but you kind of get a breather when you play Beachside. I'm not saying because Beachside they're going to beat them or whatever. I'm saying because you got that district behind you, right? You got that district win. You get a little bit of a breather. You get to go out, play this game. You're probably going to go in the 1 seed. But now, like I said, I totally get why Foster did it for the rest of the state. It's just unusual because now you look at the Ponte Vedra Sharks, who they said, hey, we're going to keep our district game against Middleburg. So they win, okay, against, what was Middleburg? Were they 6-0 or 5-0 going into this? 6-0. They were 6-0. Ponte Vedra says, nope, we're keeping our Monday night game. Middleburg says we're going to play, and boom, they pull out a huge victory. Now they get to turn around and play Orange Park, who's struggling big time at 2-5. They could end up very easily with 2 district wins in 1 week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could work out. Like, it'll be interesting to see, because Nice chose this path and Ponte Vedra decided to stay with it and stay on that path. See which kind of it'd be interesting to see kind of which path how the results turn out, how it works out in the long run. We won't know until the end of the year, but it's going to be an interesting kind of test and experience to see and what just continues to be a crazy season, for everyone.
Yeah, and to your point, it could, Nice might have some injuries they're looking to let, heal up a little bit more, so that might be part of it as well. So we'll see. So let's talk about this coming up week. Orange Park, they're going to be hosting Ponte Vedra, 7 o'clock over there across the bridge. I don't know if there's much to talk about this game, Anthony. I think Ponte Vedra, after what they showed against Middleburg, I know Orange Park is struggling this year. I think this is going to be an easy victory for the Sharks. And I think we're going to start, we started seeing like Cole Rosenthal, Hilly, some of the others, second and third stringers get in the game. I think we're probably going to be seeing that midway through the third quarter, fourth quarter, but I think this is going to be an easy victory for the Sharks.
Yeah, all signs point to that because, what Ponte Vedra was just able to do against the Broncos, and the Broncos were undefeated, and they beat Orange Park earlier in the year. So just kind of looking at it, you're like, well, I know you can't, it doesn't always work to compare, they beat them, so they're going to beat them. But yeah, Orange Park looks to be really kind of reeling and kind of trying to find answers. And, the Sharks right now, the way they're playing they're not a team you want to play when you're still looking and searching for answers. So yeah, I kind of, predict much of the same as the Monday night game carrying into Friday.
Hey, and by the way, I forgot to tell you something cool. I got an email from Miss Rosati over at Ponte Vedra High School, the athletic executive assistant, and they actually put our podcast in their Shark Bites for their students to listen to. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I appreciate them giving us a shout out there, and I hope everyone likes the show that listens to it, and thanks again for putting us in Shark Bites. Now, as we move over to Nice against Atlantic Coast, this is interesting because I think the Atlantic Coast quarterback actually came from Middleburg. I'm not sure. I think so. But I'm thinking that, again, this is going to be a fun one because Nice and Atlantic Coast are relative. You got Atlantic Coast right there off of Bay Meadows and 295. Of course, Nice over here. A lot of the kids know each other. They're friends. So, but again, I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a great night over at the Den. But I also think Nice is going to take this one probably not as easy as Ponte Vedra is going to take Orange Park, but I do think that you're going to see Nate Harry put up some yards. I think I just think it's going to be a good night for Nice, and I think Nice is going to win this one big as well.
Yeah, I know. Atlantic Coast just lost a shootout to Creekside, so they showed they can score some points. So I mean, but obviously so can Nice, and it just depends on how many points they can get against the Nice defense. Whether it's going to be a tight shootout or just kind of like a 40-20 type of
what
game.
What is it with Creekside, man? What is it with Creekside?
Yeah.
Do they like shootouts or something like that? It's like,
I
so
know.
weird.
It just seems like every week they're in some shootout, and sometimes close ones that just like, it's like they're constantly playing shootouts and instant classics,
I mean, if they were covered in Vegas, could you imagine the over-under for them? I mean, it'd be huge.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
It'd be like, are you kidding me? But it's like, and it's the least expected games too, it seems like. It's like, what was the last one against? Was it against? No. Who was it? They just had one. Bartram. It was against Bartram, wasn't it? And I was not expecting that to be a shootout. And then all of a sudden you see the score and you're like, did the defense show up? What's going on here? But yeah, so Atlantic Coast did put up some, points there. So, I mean, how do you see the big question mark though for any offense after they put up points like that is they haven't seen the Nice defense. They haven't seen Coach Garth's defense. So do you think this could be an awakening for Atlantic Coast after putting up some number of points and stuff like that? Because this is a tough one.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it because especially with Nice coming off of the bye and with all this time to prepare, I know, they were looking at Bartram, and then the last, now they have to ship to Atlantic Coast because of the change. They had them on Monday. We're supposed to have them on Monday and now Friday, but this week they're really looking and figuring out Atlantic Coast, and with just some time on their hands to do some extra digging and extra scheming. That's something that Atlantic Coast should definitely be a little worried about, because the Nice defense has been on par without buys. Plus now you give them a buy, and it could spell some tough sledding for sure for the Stingrays.
We were saying that was kind of something that Bartram was going to be facing with Coach Garth, and now we're going to see that. I mean, Atlantic Coast is going to get that twofold, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you have the Ponte Vedra recorder helicopter bringing you from Orange Park over to Nice, or are you just going to be at Nice? What are you going to do this weekend as far as coverage?
I'm just gonna hang out at Nice, and I feel like I haven't seen him in a while because of the bye, and then the game getting pushed to Friday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they come out of the bye and seeing them again.
See, I thought you were going to pull like a Mike Norvell and land the helicopter on the softball field or something, man, like in true Anthony Richards fashion.
Hey, maybe next year.
Hey, I like
always
that.
Next year,
we'll see if we can work that out for you, man. All right. Well, listen, I'll see you over at the Den on Friday night, where Nice is going to host Atlantic Coast. And then, of course, like we said, the Sharks are going to head over to the Raiders at Orange Park, and that game's going to kick off at 7 o'clock. Both games are looking like the 32081 should come back victorious in both of them. So thank you for listening. Again, thank you for Ponte Vedra High School for putting us in Shark Bites. As always, Anthony, it's great talking football with you, man. I'm liking this.
Yeah, it's always
the
great.
schedule's a little weird, but that kind of affected us with interviews. We tried to reach out to some players, but it was a little difficult. But hey, it's getting very interesting as we get down to the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, the schedule might change this year, but we're always constant. We're always there every week.
Yeah, we are talking to people, texting and just all over the place. So Anthony, thanks again. If you want to follow Anthony, please check him out on X at ANTNY Rich. That is ANTNY Rich. And also his articles over at PonteVedraRecorder.com. They are fantastic. So be sure you give Anthony a follow over on X, and make sure you check out those articles over on PonteVedraRecorder.com. Thanks again for listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe the podcast on your platform of choice. For Anthony Richards, I'm the Todd, and thank you for listening to the 320-811 Scoreboard Show.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.